That came from the Clerks Association.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Lebanon City Council meeting. It's June 11th. Our first order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll move on to the roll call of members. Madam Clerk will call the roll.
Mike Kincaid.
Present.
Keith Campbell.
Here.
Corey Coots.
Absent.
Dick Robertson.
Here.
John Copeland.
Here.
Brett Wheat.
Present.
And Dan Fleming.
Absent. Okay, with that, we'll move on to the approval of minutes from our May 29th council meeting. Does anyone have any amendments, changes, comments on the minutes?
Make a motion we approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, minutes are approved. All right, next up, on the old business, item I have here is ordinance 2018-07, which is the Lebanon Gateway Marketplace Planned Unit Development Ordinance. This ordinance is up tonight on second reading. We'll turn it over to Ben Bontrager to introduce this.
Good evening, council members. As you recall from the last meeting, this is the planned unit development ordinance for the retail development at the southeast corner of State Road 32 and Interstate 65. There have been a couple of modifications since the last council meeting to that ordinance, which you should have received late last week, primarily related to making the adjustments on the private road so that it will now be a public road with right-of-way. So we had to make some adjustments to the roadway cross-section design so that it fits within their development, and then also make a couple of adjustments to some setbacks so it fit, because they were doing setbacks from the center line of the road, now it'll be from the right-of-way line, so we made a few adjustments there as well. So you'll see in those changes, they were all highlighted in yellow for you, made a couple of changes to front yard building setback. They also added a minimum lot size for the off-premise sign, just in case they needed to carve that out into its own specific lot. And then we've got the Gateway Avenue standards for the right-of-way and design. And then the only other thing that was added, and this was in discussions with the site designer for the project, many of those outlots have 2, if not 3 road frontages, and it really limited where you could place a dumpster enclosure based on our standards. So we looked at that, and I suggested I didn't want dumpsters obviously out on State Road 32 or along the interstate. So we wrote that the dumpster locations could be adjacent to some of those internal roads between the building and the street. What our standard says now is you can't locate a dumpster enclosure between any closer to the street than the front facade, which on some of those lots would have meant there really is no place you could have put the dumpster. So we slightly modified our standard and put that in here that allowed them a little bit more flexibility on placement of dumpster enclosures. It doesn't change the requirement to enclose it, doesn't change the requirement to landscape it. It just allows them a little bit different, a little bit more flexibility in how it's placed on the lot. So those are the things that were adjusted since the last meeting. As far as process, the council could adopt those changes and adopt the PUD ordinance tonight, and then those changes would have to go back to the Plan Commission next week to confirm those changes. That does have to go back to their meeting to do that, but you could adopt those with the changes tonight.
Okay. Any questions for Ben concerning the ordinance?
Ben, I have a question on the dumpsters.
Yes.
I realize what you're saying, but again, when they're going to be out there in the front like that, they're going to have to be way more responsible to make sure they build it to our standard and that they keep the gates closed.
Yes. And we'll definitely address the exact location of them when they come in. They'll still have to come in for development plan approval for the Plan Commission, so we certainly can review.
Because that's the whole reason behind that, where the dumpster goes anyway, is to make sure it's not an eyesore.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The businesses coming in, they'll be fronting 32, won't they?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So what this basically does is the back of their lot, which would be off of the internal roadway, will allow them to place a dumpster back there. But by our ordinance, that's still considered a front because it's still a road. So it gives them a little bit of flexibility to place it on one of the internal roads.
Right. Okay.
assuming the parking for this, for patrons would be out front, and then employees or whatever would be in the back? Is that kind of what's being envisioned? Or?
Yeah, and the way our standards suggest now is basically you could put 50% out front and 50% has to be back behind on a thoroughfare. So, yeah, you're going to have parking on multiple sides of the building.
Okay. Any other questions for Ben?
No, sir.
Okay, I think at this point, since the amendments that we were talking about are technical, they wouldn't change the actual reading of it. I would first like to amend ordinance 2018-07 to reflect the changes that were made, and then read it on second reading, and then have a motion then to either adopt or reject the amended ordinance with the council. Is that okay from a procedural perspective? Everyone cool with that? Okay. So this time I would entertain a motion to amend ordinance 2018-07 to reflect the expressed changes that have been talked about.
I move that 2018-07 be amended to reflect the changes that were just discussed.
Okay. We have a motion to amend. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor of amending ordinance 2018-07 say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Ordinance 2018-07 has been amended. So, Chris, will you please read ordinance 2018-07 as amended on second reading?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. So again, this is ordinance number 2018-07. Whereas the City Council has adopted the UDO and the Advisory Plan Commission entered or considered a petition that was docket 18-14 requesting an amendment to the UDO. And after a public hearing, forwarded to this council a favorable recommendation by a vote of 9-0 in accordance with the Indiana Code. Therefore, the Common Council, if approved to this amended ordinance, if approving this amended ordinance, would adopt the UDO to changes previously articulated by Ben and the city.
Okay. Ordinance 2018-07 as amended has been read on second reading. Any further questions, comments from council? Any questions or comments from the public? Okay. At this time, I would consider an ordinance concerning ordinance 2018-07 as amended. For a motion to approve as amended.
I will move ordinance number 2018-07 as amended.
We have a motion to approve ordinance 2018-07 as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Ordinance 2018-07 as amended has been approved unanimously. So, Ben, you'll take that back to the Planning Commission, and then they'll approve that, and then we're good?
Yep, good to go.
Okay, very good. Thanks, sir. Is there any other old business come before the council? Okay, with that, I'll move on to new business. At John's request, we're going to go a little out of order here. First item up will be the food and beverage request concerning the Symphony at Sunset event. Hand that over to you, John.
Tonight, we're going to have Michael Reynolds speak in behalf for the organization. Is that correct?
Yes, you're correct.
All right.
All right. Thank you, and thank you for considering the request that we have. Symphony at Sunset has been around for several decades here in the community, and some of the things that the organization does is offer a scholarship to a graduating senior from Lebanon or Western Boone through a pretty solid application process, and it's for a student who is going on to continue in music education. With that, our group sends all the fifth grade students at Lebanon and Western Boone schools to the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra in Indianapolis so they can see that. And then the big event that we do each and every year comes just before the 4th of July, and that is our Pops concert. So when the symphony comes at Southside or Aberlonge Park to play, and we have fireworks at the end. And so that's kind of a broad overview of what Symphony at Sunset does.
We had a representative come to the food and beverage meeting the other day and made a presentation. Some of the other things they brought up was a program that they do where they bring every fifth grader goes to Indianapolis to...
Yeah, the Hilbert Theater to listen to the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra.
And this is some of the things that the symphony does with some of the monies that they bring in their organization. I will say that in the past, They've come in front of the board for request, and it's been several years since this organization has come before the Food and Beverage Committee. They made a very good presentation. And I guess, Dick, we'd like to make a recommendation for
Yes,
food and
I'd
beverage.
like to make a recommendation that we approve $1,500 for the Symphony on the Sunset for their program, help them with their program this year.
Okay.
That would be his motion.
Well, before we get there, any
I'm
other
sorry.
questions for Michael from the council? No. Any public comment concerning the request?
I think what we talked about, over 900 people or something like that usually comes to the event.
Yeah.
You work with the Parks Department. It is a very large event when it comes to the city of Lebanon. It's well received, and it really promotes Lebanon in a positive light. So
Don't
I
forget
think,
Larry Lee. He
and don't forget Larry Lee.
Yep.
The Park Department, the Street Department, they all add into this. So I think it's a very positive image for the city of Lebanon. We appreciate all that you do.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve a $1,500 appropriation from the Food and Beverage Fund to support the Symphony at Sunset. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, request has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for everything you do for the community. Okay, next item I have up here is just to inform council, we did not receive Resolution 2018-22, which is concerning the annexation fiscal plan, the proposed annexation on State Road 39, in time to present to you and have that be heard tonight. So this time I would like to have a motion to table Resolution 2018-12 or 2018-22. We have a motion to table. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. That ordinance, Resolution 2018-22 has been put on the table. So next item up I have is Resolution 2018-26, which is the authorizing investment of public funds. This is a fairly short resolution, so I'll just have Chris read this, and then Cindy, are you aware of the origin of this? If not, I can kind of speak to that from Tanya.
Go ahead.
Okay.
That's fine.
Let's have Chris read this first, and then we'll kind of have some further explanation for it.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, this is resolution number 2018-26. It is a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Lebanon authorizing the investment of public funds pursuant to the Indiana Code. So where the city desires pursuant to the Indiana Code to allow banks outside of the political subdivision to submit quotes on public funds, certificates of deposit. If approved, therefore, pursuant to the code, the Common Council of the City of Lebanon hereby would authorize the investing officer of the city to invest in certificates of deposits of depositories that have not been designated by the local Board of Finance, but have been designated by the State Board of Finance as a depository for state deposits under Indiana Code. The authorization would expire 2 years after the adoption of date, again pursuant to the Indiana Code.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So from my understanding, Tanya brought this forward as a matter of, I guess, allowing us to obtain better rates. I wasn't aware of this, but apparently we are currently bound to only use certificates of deposits with banks within the current city limits. So the goal of this ordinance is really just to make sure that anybody that chooses to do so can submit proposals or quotes to us, which hopefully would then get us a better rate. So anything you want to add to that, Cindy, or is it?
I don't.
Are you okay?
So.
All right. So like I said, this is coming from the clerk treasurer's office, not my office, so I was not fully aware of the implications of this. I'm not aware if we've done this in the past before, if this is a new ordinance or new resolution for the council, if you guys remember.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Any questions or comments from anyone?
No questions.
Okay. I guess it's a good night to not have our local bankers on the council. So any public comment concerning Resolution 2018-26? Okay. At this time, I would entertain a motion concerning Resolution 2018-26.
I'll make a motion we approve Resolution 2018-26.
We have motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Resolution 2018-26 passes unanimously. Any other new business come before the council? Okay. Would move on to claims then, and would entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we pay the claims.
We have a motion to pay the claims. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, claims are approved. Any announcements, points of discussion for the good of the order?
How's the street doing that's being repaired?
Which, the East Street or downtown? Or Kevin, do you want to speak to the downtown update?
Yeah, downtown is moving right along. We've had it's a wet, muddy mess out there today with the rain over the last 2 days, but things are progressing. We probably lost about 4 days from the original schedule. I would estimate since we started. Not really due to weather, really, until the last 2 days. Primarily, just been to the complexity associated with the unforeseen conditions below grade, with the number of old abandoned water services that we had to work around. As you can imagine, there's 6 or 8 buildings along the south side of the square. All of them have at least 1 or 2 active water services, but all of them have 2 or 3 other old abandoned water services that are still connected to the old water mains. So you can't just cut those out of the way because they're still under pressure. So that provided some complexity to the water construction. No change orders associated with that, but we probably lost a day or we probably lost a day for slow going. We probably lost another day because we didn't want them to work on Memorial Day weekend when we wouldn't have staff around in case something would happen. So just some complications, things like that. You saw probably in the paper, we found some old historic timbers, so we took some time to remove those with some care and get those stored away. But all in all, the contractor is confident. We're meeting with them on a weekly basis to review schedule. They're confident that they can make up the days that have been lost before we get to laying pavers in the month of July. So this week, we should see the rest of the storm sewer go in. We should see starting to prep subgrade for pavements on the north half of the road. Water services will go in next week, and then they'll start prepping the subgrade on the south side of the road. We're working, they're doing a good job working with all the business owners and building owners. They'll be cutting in those new water services on off-peak hours. So on the weekends or on Mondays and Tuesdays when the restaurants are closed, just to make sure there's as little disruption in service as possible. But in general, the project is moving along as planned with normal complications you would expect when you're working with this kind of infrastructure in a historic downtown.
Answer your question?
It did. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Any other announcements, discussion, questions? Okay. Would move on. Would entertain a motion to adjourn then.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn, and is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Our next city council meeting will be June 15th at 7:15 p.m. Actually, excuse me, there will be a special city council meeting on Friday at 4 o'clock.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching.
Cindy, I have a letter for you. I'll get to